Coming up on Little Pricks Podcast. Love in general is something that everybody is deserving of, Take a moment to acknowledge that. And love is something that you deserve to give to yourself, And even that moment where things got a little emotional there for you, I think, if you're not getting it from anybody else, goddamn it, give it to yourself.
He's not cheap. I just like to say it.
Oh, yeah.
That was a crisp sound. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah, buddy. Oh, yeah. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo! Come on, dude. What is going on here, Fareed? We got to talk about this, man, because this is not our regular place.
This is not our regular place. We are trying to build out a studio. It is currently a couple of bed sheets inside of a two-bedroom apartment, but it's great.
Come on, man.
I love it.
Can't hate on this.
No,
it's
great.
Awesome, man. Couple of bed sheets. It's all right. Couple of amateurs.
We're working our way up.
No, we are, man. I'm pretty excited about it. I think.
And there's good news.
Yeah, good news.
We're gonna have guests soon. We're currently setting it up for that, right?
Yeah, and I think we need to, right? Because we have our conversations, and not that they're not good. I think we have fantastic conversations, but I do think
we need more.
I think people just have a lot of things to add. Like, we're just not the only two people with words that hold value, and I think that kind of dynamic. Maybe we got two more chairs, having four people, even having a third person realistically would just be awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And today is very important and very special.
Yeah, man.
Because we're kicking off our love series.
Dude, and I'm so excited. The love series is something that a lot of people have requested. A lot of people have given us feedback and said, hey, not accepting subpar, low standard love is great, but there's a lot of different kinds of love. Mm-hmm. And what is love anyway? So we just got a lot of feedback, and we got a lot of questions off of that episode.
This is going to be basically like a 5-part series.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, I think, 4 to 5 parts for sure.
We're going to break it up in between other topics.
Right.
But at least we can kind of tackle and discuss what love is and figure out what it means to each and every one of us in different ways.
I'll be curious to see if you and I's definition changes throughout the series. That's interesting, because I think as of right now, with at least the couple of discussions we had before recording, I think we define it a little bit differently, or we at least feel differently about it. And I think throughout this series, we will be able to explore the reasons why, and maybe come to a more concrete foundation of just love in general in both of our lives.
I think it actually comes down to where we disagree on is not so much what love is, it's what constitutes having love.
Okay, yeah. maybe that too. I'll be curious, man. I'll just be curious to see how this goes. But without further ado, man, in the new studio.
Welcome to the new studio and to the love series.
Yeah, welcome to the love series, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks everybody for reaching out. Please continue to do so.
Absolutely.
We definitely love getting the emails. We love getting the direct messages on Instagram and Facebook, and we're just happy to be here. Happy to have you guys be part of the series,
the discussion,
part of the community. And without further ado, let's start it, man. The first episode, the love series.
So I'd like to start off with defining what is love.
And are you going to define it like textbook?
Yep. Textbook definition of love.
All right.
So we start off with what was a quick Google search and Merriam-Webster's dictionary definition of what is love.
Right.
And that is an intense feeling of deep affection. Okay. A great interest and pleasure in something. And then
so what would that be, a noun? Help?
That's the noun. That's the noun. And then there's the verb of it, which is like or enjoy something very much, such as I love dancing. You are loving dancing, kind of a thing. So,
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So now that we have the basic concept of what love is, according to the dictionary, this is the societally accepted version of what love is. Right?
Yeah, I think yeah. I think that's a question that's just so multifaceted. I think, for the sake of conversation, no doubt, that's an easy way to define like what love is. I think.
So the reason I want to define the word, is because the word has a meaning, and that matters.
Yeah.
What it feels to you or I might be different. That's okay.
Maybe so.
That's where things
fair.
differ. But at least now we have a baseline of what love is. right? And then how it makes us feel, that's up to your own interpretation, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because words have meanings.
Right. No, that's fair. That's fair. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. That's fair.
So from there, now that we kind of understand what love is, the definition of love, right? We now need to see how that relates to the different kinds of relationships that we have with it, right? And so,
right, sure, or like the different places that it comes from, I guess, maybe is another way of wording it.
I would say the four types.
The four
types of relationships of love we build, which I think we came to the conclusion of was friendship, which is platonic,
right.
Romantic, parental, and one that is widely
slept on, man. We do not talk about it enough.
Is self-love.
Self-love. And why is that, do you think? I think like when we're kids and we're growing up, right? We're taught these things about like how to be a good friend. And then as we get a little bit older, how to be a good partner, a good romantic partner. And somewhere in the mix of that, we have that parental love. But it feels like self-love for some reason gets left out. And I think, why is that? Why do you think?
I think the self-love one is the most difficult to deal with, only because it's the only one that happens automatically. It's just at what form you're taking with it, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, is the difference, right? Now, I would say in school nowadays, I've heard a lot of kids being told, like, hey, care about yourself, love yourself, things like that, right?
Yeah, okay.
But it's such a...
Maybe that's just our experience, or at least my experience. That wasn't a thing when I was in school.
I mean, if you think about it, you were taught self-love to some extent, right? When you had teachers praising you, you did a great job, you should be proud, right? That is teaching you self-love.
So maybe then these other forms of love shape our self-love.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah. And that's a point that I wanted to get to at some point. But basically, the self-love is the constantly evolving version of love because it never stops. It never changes. And they develop based on how you see the other three, right? But
not bad. I think it could go both ways. Yeah, it could go both ways.
The danger with self-love that I see, though, is you can either neglect it too much and not have a great concept of self-love, or you can give yourself an abundance of unhealthy self-love, and become a narcissist.
In what way do you think? Oh, like in developing those narcissistic traits, yeah. Which, to be fair, is just a very horrendous coping mechanism that develops into a personality disorder.
Exactly.
It's a gross lack of that love from other people, and it's like a self-soothing way of getting that need met. It's just not so healthy.
Absolutely. And I would say that they probably have an order of importance, or how you develop them as you're growing up, right? Like the first form of love is going to be parental. At least it should be.
Like if you're making a list, you're saying in chronological order, you would say that parental is number one.
Yes, parental love is going to be the first form of love you experience.
That's fair. I agree with that. I think, but one thing you have to consider though is people that don't get that right off of the bat. Like there's some people that don't have that parental love. Just briefly, like we don't have to take a deep dive into that.
Well, I'll say that whether you received it or not, you were either done a disservice or not. Yeah. It's the first and most important form of love at that developmental age, right? If you didn't get it, that really sucks. It kind of stunts you for the rest of it.
Yeah, it kind of does. You're right. Even personally, I've experienced that. But I would also like to say that you don't necessarily have to get that from your birth parents either. So
the people who raise you, so to speak, right?
Yeah, right.
It is obviously the most healthy and beneficial if it is from your birth parents.
That would be nice.
But it needs to be of some kind of person of authority that loves you.
Yes.
Right?
No doubt.
Like if you were raised by your grandparents because your parents weren't around, great, that works.
Right.
Is it going to be identical? Sure. No. There's a lot of biology and chemistry that goes into that. But
that's fair. That'd be interesting to dive into. Okay. Yeah. So number 2 then, what do you think? I'm going to say either friendship or romantic. I think friendship will probably come first, just given like
it's got to be friendship.
Chronologically, like age-wise, you're going to have friends probably first.
It's going to be parental, and then it's going to be friendship.
Yeah, no doubt.
It has to be because at 3 years old, I was not looking for a romantic partner. At 3 years old, I was like, just play with me.
Right, that's fair. And that's really important too. I think I usually feel pretty connected to the topics that we talk about. And I think that in some of these categories of love, I will feel connected and I feel really well versed on. But I want to try to be mindful as we go through these episodes to take time to talk about maybe the not so common avenue of navigating through each of these things. Like, and maybe that'll just be you and me and we'll accomplish that together. But for me personally, like the parental and the friendship one, like both I struggle with so bad and I have such a disconnected relationship with. But I also feel so confident in my relationship with myself at this point in my life and these other topics too. Maybe it's just earlier in my life. I can't speak on those as much. What do you feel like? So like we've talked about it and we're defining these things, but
I think that each one is a building block for the next.
yeah, it's like a foundation kind of.
You have to start with the foundation. Like I was saying before, your parental love, and the reason I rank that one so importantly, right?
Yeah, and I agree.
They are the absolute crux of what happens next. So
Yeah.
I think, for example, your parent
Yes.
is your authority figure,
Right, of course.
right? So you're learning that kind of respect. That's the first thing. But they're also teaching you how to play,
Oh, right.
right? And
okay.
that's gonna absolutely come into play when you go find friends, right? They'll teach you how to
Yeah.
share. They'll teach you how to make sure that both people in the interaction are happy. And they also are your base block for the next one, the romantic love, right? Because they teach you how to flirt, which I know seems to be controversial at first because you're like, what do you mean you're flirting with your kid?
Right.
Right?
But I see what you're saying.
But the truth of the matter is, like,
or maybe explain a little bit, I guess.
yeah, it's that you learn that push-pull with your parents, right?
Okay.
You're playing peekaboo. You're playing, like, oh, where did the toy go? Where did this go? Right.
Right.
And suddenly, that innocent interaction, and it is always innocent, is the start and root of what flirtation is, because you learn how to do this here. You go meet your little 6-7-year-old girl on the
playground, right?
You're like, oh. You pick on her, kind of a thing, just like you did a little bit with your parents, and that's fine within a healthy confine. But that's where you learn how to flirt, and you see that.
Is this like an idea that you came up with on your own, or is this something that you heard somewhere?
This is all based on psychology.
Yeah,
this is not my interpretation of it.
What is it, Maslow? I think
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Hierarchy of needs, yeah.
And probably has something to do with this, but I mean.
Well, there's that, and then there's, man, I should know this. I really should. If I worked more with pediatrics, I would know this a little bit better. But it doesn't just involve peds. It's adult and older adult life,
for sure.
too. But there's like maybe the viewers can comment what I'm trying to think about. It's on the tip of my tongue, man. But it's like the age groups. There's like newborn, school age,
toddler, school age.
Right. So it's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway,
you develop them as you go along, right? But your parentals, they teach you how to be a friend. They teach you how to start your flirtation to hopefully find a partner, right? And we see this with like little boys, for example, when they're, with interacting with their mother as they start to grow up a little bit, and they start to realize that marriage is a thing. And what's the one thing that
it's like your first love, right?
It is absolutely
like for a boy it would be his mom, and for a girl it would be their dad, right?
What does every boy say to their mom? Mom, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to marry you someday.
Right? Yeah.
Right?
In an ideal world, or maybe I guess if for someone like me, you get like the heart that says mom in the middle of it. I don't have that tattoo, but
yeah. And it's funny though, because you don't realize it. It's not something you think about, but it's such a crucial step. Right?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. And you don't think about it, right?
Step.
Like, how could you? You were a kid. But as you get older, you start to realize, whether you had it or not, you start to realize that presence or lack thereof in your life really, really, really shapes who you become and what relationship you have with all of these different kinds of love in your adult life.
So as your parents are teaching you how to become a good friend, you're slowly learning what that means or how that translates into a romantic partner, right?
Yeah.
As you start flirting on the schoolyard, you start liking girls or boys, whatever, right? And you start to learn how those interactions, those dynamics are different from each other.
Yeah.
Right? And I would say that all of that feeds into self-love, right?
Yeah.
Because
we can draw all the arrows over to self-love, because it definitely has a big influence.
Your parents help you realize or define that you are worthy of love,
right?
Based on how they love you, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
If they show you that love standard, right? If
Yeah.
your parents show you good love, you start to realize, whoa, 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 whoa. I've seen what love is like,
Right. And this is not
what
it.
it feels like, what it should be, and if it's not, it's not. And the more healthy your standard of friendship becomes, you start to realize, like, I'm willing to put up with this, but not that. That's a cutoff for me. And then romantic, especially, right?
Yeah.
A good sense of self-love defines how you'll allow romantic partners to treat you.
Nope. Good one. Yeah. Because literally just an imbalance of any of these will positively or negatively affect all of the others, right?
Yeah, you start to learn boundaries. That's a
Yeah.
huge one, right?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
That's like my parents were. My parents never said anything derogatory to me, for example. So why would I ever let a friend say that to me? Why would I ever let a romantic partner say that to me? And I know that I want to provide the same kind of love to my future children. Simple as that. I'm not going to let. There's a standard here.
Right.
Won't touch it.
Okay.
You cannot break that now.
Totally fair, man.
And so that we kind of dove into how they differ, right? It's
Right.
That platonic love is that caring for a friend, right? You care about them in such a way that you want to just see their success,
Yeah.
right? When you have a romantic love, it's you want to see our success,
Okay.
right?
Or ideally you would, yeah.
Yeah.
In a healthy dynamic.
Yeah. And then you have that parental love. It's you want to share a love that you've grown ever since the day you were born, right? And that self-love, I would say, is a love that you have with yourself that you want to share with the world.
Ooh, it's a good one. Or a byproduct too of all the other ones. Like I it's hard to say like what kind of an order, because I think at different stages in your life, these can all be in a different order. And I think in earlier conversations, maybe I even felt like, you know, self-love should be number one, or like there should be this certain order to it. But honestly, and I don't think that the order that we've laid out here is bad, but to be honest with you, as we're discussing here, I think it just changes throughout your life. And, you know, we say all self-love is forever evolving, but I think all of these different loves are forever evolving. And it's just such a balancing act, I feel like. And all four of these have looked different in different stages of my life. What do you feel like? Have these looked different? Has it been a pretty like type A laid out order for you? 1, 2, 3, 4? Has it?
I think the way they develop follows an order.
Okay.
I think that the importance at different stages in your life will change.
Okay.
Right? They have to grow in one shape and form.
So you're saying that you went in that order, like parental, friendship, romantic,
It's
self.
the only thing that makes sense, right? Your parental love teaches you how to be a friend. Your friendship love teaches you how to be a romantic partner. And all three of those teach you how to love yourself. Now,
I hear you.
importance of each one at different stages varies, right? If I'm looking for, you know, my friends, that's going to be more important than a romantic partner. But someday I want to get married, right? So it's going to be a bit more important to me to focus on romantic love and how that affects me, the self, right, than it is for me to go finding more friends.
So, right. So my challenge is this, is that my order obviously didn't look like that. And I tried to, right? Like I don't disagree that the way we're talking about is a really good and ideal way to go about it. It's very fundamental. It's like kind of a building block way of going about it. But I was stuck in a part in my life where I was so bad with this self-love, this relationship with myself. Everything else suffered and nothing else got better until I worked on that self-love. Like everything had to shut down. And what you were friends with me at this point. I mean, this was like within the year that I had to do this. And I had to take and completely not eliminate. I mean, we were still friends, obviously. But it wasn't quite so much in the forefront, right? I had to turn off the flow, turn off the switch to all of these other types of love and focus all the energy, all the volts and amps that I could into this self-love in order to finally begin to repair the self-love, and then become a better friend, a better romantic partner.
We just call that watts.
Watts? Oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm not an electrician, but
volts times amps is just wattage.
Okay, fair.
Just
good to know. Good to know. Good to know.
But I agree with you.
So it's not the only way, and I think, you know.
No, I think you're right.
It's tough. I think that it's a fundamental way, the way that we talked about and laid out first. But you know, how do you navigate that? What does that look like? And, how does that make all of these, like, would that make parental, romantic, friendship become different? Will we define them different? Do we have different relationships with them? I think so. I think it's very possible.
They're very different. I would say, actually.
Like, as far as, like, if you go in that order versus the order you're talking about is what I was asking.
Look, I'd say you might want to look for symptoms of a hurting self, right?
Sure.
I think that's how I discovered mine, was that my mind was constantly chaos.
Right.
Just always chaos. There's never very much clarity.
But you had that traditional trajectory.
I did, but that didn't mean that I didn't have trauma along the way.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just pointing out that.
But I will say that once I figured out that trauma that needed to get dealt with and fixed it, suddenly all of these became more clear.
Yeah.
Because I think a person that's struggling through that chaos, and this is why I very much implore, I think both of us do, get your mental health right. Yeah. You may not realize it's not right. It takes a lot of
unfortunately, sometimes you realize that it's something that's been buried so deep, you forget it's there. Mm-hmm. You buried the time capsule and you forgot where you buried it.
Yep.
But then you find it. Yeah. Guilty. Then you trip over the rock or the old headstone, brush it off, and you're like, oh God.
Absolutely guilty.
There that is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so if you have a mind of chaos, I think a lot of people, and this is actually one that it's completely controversial. It's just a thought of my own.
Yeah, sure.
I think a lot of people sit there and think, well, I just have ADD or ADHD. I just can't focus on something. I was accused of it multiple times by doctors.
Yeah.
Right? And it wasn't, at least for me, and they tried to medicate me for it, which went terribly wrong. Yeah. And it was not so much that I was ADD or ADHD. It was that I was simply dealing with trauma in my own way, and that's just stuffing your mind with stuff.
Well, and it's like, just like you said, constant chaos, and it's hard to navigate, man. Christ. You can't even focus or have a solid train of thought.
Nope. You find some of that trauma, you start to deal with it, I promise you, your brain starts to calm down.
Yeah.
It starts to quiet down, because it's the only thing you can do to heal, or to not heal, to not feel the pain.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I would agree with you on all of those things, that different forms of love have different importances at different times in your life. The self should always be one of the most important, because the self will help you interact with these healthy.
Right. And that's where I gravitate towards. I think from infancy, parental first, friendships, romantics, and then self. But then I think as we get older, that switches around a lot. That's the only point I'm trying to make, is that the self becomes so much more important and so much evident with either the prominence or lack of it later in your life. And then it kind of becomes time to put self like number one.
I guess
then all these things, number 2, 3, and 4, right?
The question is when.
It's hard, right? I mean, how do you possibly define when? I think it depends on how you fundamentally developed. Like, I think you maybe had more of that traditional trajectory, the parental first. You have a good relationship with your parents. I did not. So already off of the bat, from birth, right? Like,
beaten horse over here.
Right.
Yeah.
Beaten down from the get. We're just different, right? We started out so different. So already you're
different.
Right.
I'm built different.
Smashes an egg with your arm. That's what that's from, right? Yeah. But so defining when it becomes more focused on the self, I don't know, man. I think for me, it was a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. For you, it's now. You're how old now?
32.
So 32. So then
I was 32, and
I was 24.
People to realize I was broken.
Well, just need for improvement. I don't know. I don't think you're a broken man.
I was broken.
Yeah. Well, maybe in some ways. As a whole, I don't believe you were.
I would say as a whole, if we're basing everything based off love, I would say as a whole I was broken, because I didn't know how to properly give and receive love.
Even after having the good relationship with the other things, huh? Or at least the good parental. We started off with a good parental. Maybe I shouldn't say with everything.
I'll pause you there, right? My parental love was pretty good.
Right.
My friendship love was pretty broken.
Oh, so I got parental was the broken part for me. I had better with the friendships. Yeah. But and it was vice versa.
Because my friendship love didn't develop right. My romantic struggled. And to some extent, because they all feed back, right? My parental.
Yeah, I was going to take a moment to make a point on that even though my parental was bad and yours was good, and vice versa for our friendships, both of us still struggled in that romantic aspect.
Oh yeah, I was not available. I was not present for romantic partners. However, I at least had the autonomy to think to myself, I need to be sweet and kind to my romantic partners.
Right.
So I wasn't like abusive towards them, not intentionally. It was like there was no follow through, right? That
Okay.
chaotic mind. Like, you should probably buy your girlfriend flowers sometimes.
Yeah, not a bad idea,
Right?
You should, and I'm not poking fun at you.
No, you
I've
can't.
struggled in the same regard. Like, buy her flowers.
Buy
you
her
idiot.
flowers.
Like,
You should, when you go to the grocery store, I found chocolate that you really like. I found that I know you love blueberries. I brought you a bushel of them, right?
Right.
And the question becomes, why couldn't I do those things, or why couldn't you do those things? For me, it was chaos, constant chaos. In fact, I had one that like really speaks to me to this day, right? I had an ex-partner would sit there and tell me like, why can't you be considerate and think of little sweet things for me? I do it all the time for you, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I think I've been there before, no doubt.
And I would sit there, and it became this crippling anxiety for me. It's like, why can't I think about her and what she wants, and like, why can't I take care of her? Why can't I be like do nice things for her? Then I'd be like, your standards are too high.
Oh God. Yeah.
Because I'm freaking out. I don't know how to. I'm just not that person.
Yeah.
Your standards are too high now, without taking the time to realize maybe the self isn't okay. Because now that the self is okay, I will tell you what, man. I know exactly what that girl likes now. It's just there. Sure. It's ready to go. I can think of her in ways that you have no idea whether we're together or not. I know what that girl needs now because I have clarity. And all those years of being together just kind of rushed in. It had the ability to take up that new space.
That hurts.
Where my own mental chaos was.
Yeah, that hurts bad.
Oh, it hurts tremendously bad.
But
I can laugh at it because it's stressful for me, but it's not.
Right.
It's like tear jerker for me. It's like, why couldn't you do it?
Well, yeah. You know, and I just take a moment here, buddy, to have some, even if we cut this out, have some grace for yourself, man.
You're not wrong.
Have some grace, man, because that's all we're doing. We're sitting in this room, we're talking, and the people listening we're just trying to find a better version of ourselves. Like we can sit here and like, we've kind of like textbook defined some things, and that's good, right? We want some foundation in that, but the real answer to all these things is, when you focus on the self, when don't you? When does one thing become more important than the other? There is no solid answer. We're not going to have that solid answer here at this table, man. And have some grace. You did the best that you could with the information that you had at the time, man.
I can agree with that. I did the best I could. I'm just glad I figured it out.
Right.
Whether it was on time or too late is irrelevant. I figured it out. We worked through that kind of a thing. Woo!
It's okay, man.
I got my little tear out there.
You're going to get me here if you keep it up. You're going to get me.
I got a little tear there, man. Well, because it's definitely painful to know or to remind yourself of the pain you've inflicted on others because you didn't take the time to figure yourself out.
Yeah.
And that's a big important thing about love.
Yeah, it's a big important thing about love. So
if hurt people,
yeah,
then people who don't truly love themselves properly can't love others properly.
Yeah. So when you don't have love, that's the byproduct, and it can make you a monster if you let it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it can cause you a great deal of pain too. It can leave you feeling empty.
And you can go around hurting other people.
Yeah.
And that's not great. That's not great at all. I think you're right. I need to show myself some grace because I have regret.
Right.
Right? I want to say it's a healthy amount of regret because
Sure.
I'm sorry, it's not regret, it's remorse.
Sure.
It's remorse for the hurt.
It shows introspection, man. It shows accountability. If you sat at this table, talked about this place in your life where you lacked love, either receiving, giving, or both, maybe, and didn't have this remorse or didn't have that tearfulness or didn't have that self-reflection, then I'd be worried about you, man.
It's like just thinking about it, man. It's so interesting to me, right? Because that's the next question is like, how do we interact with each version of love and what's the relationship to each other? And it's just like looking back at that lack of self-love and then comparing it to that romantic love and even parental love, right? I was very standoffish towards receiving love.
And I would like to add that I also, in the same way, I'm working on it, obviously, but I'm also the same way because of my lack of parental love.
It's weird, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's off-putting to me.
It's very off-putting. I would have, and I can only compare this to my most recent relationship, right? Because that's the one that's most fresh. But she would say things like, "You have no idea how much I love you," right? And I would reply to her like, no, you have no idea how much I love you. I just like, and I guess the finishing to that statement was like, I just can't express it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And when she would say like very sweet kind of, like little, I don't even know what to say, like very sweet expressions to me, right? In a loving fashion. I remember because my self-love wasn't quite developed enough, and my self-worth wasn't very high, I would cringe at hearing those things.
Yeah, well, and that's called something. It's called imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. I would agree.
And I have had my bout with that also.
Yep. And so that's something very important. You have to focus on the self-love and remove trauma. And when we say self-love, let's really focus on that trauma aspect of it.
Okay.
And not on the whole, because again, if you don't focus on that, I think it leads to like narcissism. And it's a very fine line, right?
Yeah.
Focus on healing trauma,
avenue, for sure.
Not on just obsessing over yourself.
Maybe. I think some more well-versed and educated people in that field of study could give you a more concrete line, a more concise line of where that gets drawn, because loving yourself is not narcissism.
No.
It's exploiting others to get that
Self-love,
need and feeling of self-love met for yourself. That is narcissism. So and again, just to reiterate, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a mental health expert. Neither is Fareed. We're just two
dudes trying to figure this out.
Right. I think there is a line, because there is a line between really focusing hard and loving yourself and being narcissistic or displaying narcissistic traits. So
then back to our question we were working on is how do we interact with each version of love, and what is our relationship to each? I would say they are almost an inverse of each other.
Yeah.
And they're directly correlated. So how I view either my friendship love, romantic love, or parental love, especially self-love, directly correlates to my relationship with it. Right?
Yeah, and I think that, again, we talked about this earlier. I said it earlier, an imbalance in any of them completely just dysregulates the rest. It's a balancing act.
I would agree. So if I have a poor relationship with building friendships, for example,
right,
I'll be damn sure that I'm going to struggle with the romantic one to be healthy. I might be either really off-put by them.
Sure.
Either off-put by them, or I might go gun-ho too far in to them.
Yeah, and like maybe display some of that like anxious attachment style with all like friends, romantic partners, whoever.
Love bombing.
Just people in general. You might love
because I don't need friends. I just want my partner, kind of a thing.
Right. Or I don't need a partner. I want my friends. But relationships are scary and fuck all that.
Yeah, I don't need friends.
Yeah.
Or you might see your friendships too strongly. And you neglect your relationships.
Good one. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That might be a very one.
Or vice versa. Wait, did you say romantic and then neglect friends? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
yeah.
Vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have that sometimes, right? Like you have the people in your life, or you can at least recall people in your life before. It's like, they're with a partner now. Forget it. We're not going to see them. We're not going to hear from them.
I have a friend actually that God bless his heart. I love him to death. We were somewhat close friends, but the moment he got into a relationship, I've heard from him maybe 4 or 5 times total to do stuff, and he's been married ever since. He's, from my understanding, happily married, but don't hear from him.
Right, which is good, right? You're like, good for this guy, whoever it is. Glad you're happily married, but again, it's that imbalance.
Don't hear from him, though.
Man, and it's tough. And even personally, I guess instead of picking on this guy, even in my personal life, when it needed to happen, don't kid yourself, but when I this year took that really deep dive and really focused on that self-love, our friendship suffered. And I took accountability for that, and I accepted that. And I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. I haven't been around. I haven't been present. I acknowledge that. I needed to take a deep dive within myself. Now I can be a better friend now. I can be a better partner. Yeah, right. So similarly as the friend you're talking about who's happily married now, I was happily in a relationship with myself, but then everything else suffered. So just to reiterate and to prove it and give perspective multiple times here, an imbalance in any of them, doesn't matter which one, an imbalance of any of these types of love really
you got to have
everything
a healthy
suffer.
Relationship with every single one of those.
And that's a lot. That's kind of daunting. I'll be honest. Even talking about it out loud right now kind of gives me a little bit of anxiety.
It can be daunting, but you start off carefully, right?
Right.
Put a little bit into each cup, or maybe start on the self. And I think the self is one of the most important ones. Find your trauma. You have it most likely. Most of us do.
Well, yeah, we all do, man. Here's the ugly truth. We're all fucked up. We just are. We're all fucked up. And I think a lot of it surrounds the topic
I would
of
say,
love. It's just that some people maybe hide
what
it better.
extent?
To what extent? And some people, to be fair, man, some people just hide it better. Okay. Like, I'm no worse off than you, and you are no worse off than me. We are just, to what extent and which part of the love have we suffered?
That actually brings something to my mind here.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, man.
You're right. Some people hide it better.
Yeah. It's not that you're way better, you know, because you made a comparison of you're 32 and I'm 26.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, man.
No. One of the statements that just like clicked in my head, one of the statements I was constantly told was, especially when I've been like telling people like my issues that I've had.
Sure.
Right? I've been like breaking down to different people that I care about, like, hey, this is something I was dealing with.
Yeah.
It affected you without you realizing it.
Yeah.
And this is the improvement. The most common statement I would get is, what are you talking about? You're so confident. And I was like,
no, I've been there, done that too. I've had that reaction also.
They're like, what do you mean you have these problems? I've been dealing with you forever. There's nothing there.
I've known you all of our life.
You've been a happy, healthy, bouncing baby boy kind of a thing. And I'm like, no, I've been a wreck inside. Yeah. I've just apparently faked it really well. And that was, I think the interesting part was, I think I did explain small portion of this to my last partner, right? And she had a hard time accepting that one. She's like, no. You're like, you were fine.
Right. Because from an outside perspective, honestly, and I know you personally also, I'll be honest, man, from an outside perspective, you know, business owner, and you always look well and put together. Your hair's always done. Your beard's always trimmed super nice. You dress, I would say, nice every day. I hardly see you in sweats and a t-shirt. Maybe when I come over to your house and it's just you and me or something. But in general, man, your appearance, looks like somebody well put together, has their shit in order.
Well, I would say that's more of a recent thing. I went out and bought a whole new wardrobe about 4 months ago, and I've taken on that version of myself. Before that, though,
I don't know. I mean, these people know you longer than I have, and they're saying the same thing, that you're always this confident, well put together,
emotionally
best
confident,
foot forward.
Speaking forward, confident. I was always t-shirt and shorts, and sneakers, right?
That's fair. And I remember that. Yeah.
If I break that down,
okay,
I know exactly from the self aspect. I know why I dress that way.
Yeah.
Because if it was comfortable, right, then I had the excuse, well, why didn't you dress better? I was just comfy. Because I didn't feel like I deserved better clothing. Wow. That was a big one, right? Why did I always wear shoes? I always thought it was, why did I always wear sneakers? I never went out in flip-flops. This is a really ridiculous one, though, by the way.
Okay,
this is a crazy one for me to comprehend. It was in the event that I had to fight somebody. I was always ready with my footwear.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was like, either I'm not going to trip over a sandal.
Right.
And if I have to run, I can run. And my reasoning behind that was I wasn't confident in my ability to defend myself.
Wow.
I am now.
Right.
And so like that rule has laxed a little bit. Man. Now it just comes from a practical standpoint, right? Because I've been boxing. Right. I've been doing kickboxing. And I know what I can do now. Wow. And so that's part of the self-love. I figured that out.
Yeah. And also it addresses how we interact with each of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
that was a huge fear of mine. And a big reason I couldn't show romantic love was I didn't feel like I could defend her if I ever needed to, and I didn't know how to deal with that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about that, but that plays back in again, man. A lack or an imbalance in any of
total imbalance,
it will wreck the rest of them.
Absolutely.
And I'm kind of realizing that now. Even the first time, like we tried to record this, or the other discussions that we had,
we're like barking dogs at each other.
I'm in like real time realizing how much of a balancing act this is. My God. Like for example, for reference, guys, so we recorded this at first. It was kind of just back and forth banter. It really wasn't like making as much progress as this episode is. My God, Freed's cried in this episode. You almost got tears out of me. Like, this has been really good and really productive. I freaking love this episode. I cannot wait to edit this and put it out for everybody. But I'm realizing now that, I argue that self-love, and nothing else. You can't have shit without self-love. But the realistic truth that I'm realizing in this discussion is, holy shit, you have even a slight or major imbalance in any one of them, you're dicked.
Yep.
You are screwed for the rest of them.
You got to balance them out.
You have to. It's a balancing act, man. And wow, I'm realizing now I'm going to have to maybe take into an era of, what's my parental relationship look like, and that unfortunately some of it's out of my hands, but maybe maybe there's opportunity there. I don't know.
There's a lot of opportunity here. I think when you find that balance, figure out your traumas in that self-love region.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have trauma in your parental or romantic or friendship that is still...
Or maybe all of them. Like maybe you
frames how
just need to wipe the slate clean and go, shit.
I wouldn't say wipe the slate clean because you can't really do that, right?
Well, in a metaphorical sense, in a sense of like, okay, let's start from ground one. Let's try to build on all of them.
Well, that's kind of where I go back to, though. I don't know if you ever can do that, even from a metaphorical standpoint. I think you have to sit there and hurt.
That's fair.
There
is something to be said about taking the time to just hurt,
right?
And feel the pain instead of avoiding it.
If something happened to you that has created some form of trauma, you can't just be like, it didn't happen, it's fine, clean slate, because that's what I did. I pretended. I literally created a clean slate when I turned 18.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah.
Okay.
And by doing that, I completely screwed up my developmental stages in here.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Right? When I turned 18, I tell myself I have 3 births.
Oh.
When I was born,
right,
when I turned 18, and when I figured out my childhood trauma, which is a few months ago.
Why 18? Just because it's just 18. You're a man now, or
nope.
what? What's the reason?
Well, I had a mole on my face.
Oh,
yeah. And at 18, I had the full autonomy to get it removed.
I don't know if we talked about that on the podcast.
We did it. I think we did at some point. Yeah.
I know you and I talked about it.
Yeah.
But maybe just in case we didn't.
Well, I'll bring it back up. So basically, at 18 years old, I had prior to 18, I'd grown up feeling ugly, small, and picked on relentlessly.
Yeah.
Right. And I kept trying to beg my parents, like, hey, can we please get this thing removed? Can I get this thing removed? Yada, yada. No, you're beautiful the way you are. Right. Loving parents. You're beautiful the way you are.
Right. Yeah. I'm a little biased.
Yeah. They did their best, but,
Yeah.
And so in my head, it came down to once I get this thing removed off my face, people won't have an opportunity to pick on me and they'll get to see who I really am. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
18 rolled around. I pulled everything I needed to. And I got it removed within like a week of turning 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It was I realize now it was such a traumatic event in general.
Oh, yeah, sure. Especially if you got relentlessly picked on and bullied for it.
Well, yeah, but it's like the manifestation of that trauma, right? Like I don't like needles and I don't like being cut. Like the one thing that freaks me out is seeing skin open when you cut it with like a scalpel. It tears me up. Can't do it. It's the one reason I'm not a doctor.
Fair.
Can't. Right? But to put into perspective, right? It was so traumatic being picked on for so long that I accepted having local anesthetic being put on me, awake.
Just local?
Local.
Wow. So like for reference for the medical people that don't understand that, or for the non-medical rather, that's like lidocaine with epi at best. Mm-hmm. It's not anything crazy. I mean, it works. Don't kid yourself, but it's still only local.
It didn't work great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's only local anesthetic.
It was local anesthetic. I was so frustrated. My parents sat in the corner of the room. They watched their boy get cut open.
Wow.
And they basically they did a teardrop or an oval shape, right?
Okay.
Following my skin fold lines. When I smile, the scar would follow.
Good,
right?
Yeah, good on them for doing that, because that's a good point. That could have really not healed well.
And
that's cool.
I felt the incision. I felt them cutting. I could feel my skin being torn, right, by this blade. And I had an iPod in one ear, and I just sat there and I said, "This is a new day. This is what happened. I don't care." I felt every ounce of that pain because it hadn't kicked in all the way, right? And I just sat there and I went, "Let's do this." That's how much it affected me.
Ready. Wow.
I was that ready.
Wow.
And after my scar had healed up a little bit, right, whole new person. I took on a whole new persona. I completely erased the prior. And I hid that from everyone. No one got to see my photos of me before 18.
Whoa, okay.
Yep. Wow. I did the blank slate.
Okay.
And I will tell you what, not the solution.
I accept that. That sounds like a bad way.
Bad way to
That's bad. Okay.
Deal with the trauma head on.
Yeah. Go back, find the roots, dig them up, and hack them off with a fucking saw.
Hack them off with a cut.
Dig up the roots, man, because if you don't, I see what you're saying.
And a great symptom of you having trauma is chaos in your mind, because it's your mind's way of coping with pain by distracting you. It's not always something you need to medicate. Yeah. That's not to say that some people don't have ADHD. They do.
Sure, right.
But I think a lot of us suffer from some kind of trauma we haven't dealt with that we medicate instead of dealing with.
Yeah, and I felt that for a really long time too, man. Like that chaotic brain that you're talking about, wow. I only silenced that in the last couple of years. And I would say that even a couple of years ago, I didn't have it silenced. I would say it's been as recent as 1 year. I've only had 1 year of peace so far.
Mine's been a few months only, and I will tell you, everything is so nice.
Yeah, it's a lot quieter. It's a lot more peaceful.
Doctors tried to medicate me.
Yeah.
It was just something I had to deal with.
And again, not to discourage anybody ever from getting help and getting medicated, because that obviously is a doctor's prescription, and they are doctors.
They know more than we do.
And we are not. But this is we're just sharing our experience.
So I think to conclude all of this, right?
Yeah, right. So now that we've talked about all this, right?
Yeah.
How do we summarize all of this?
It's each relationship we have is different. The way we love is different between each one, between friends and romantic and parental and the self. They're all independently important, but they also react to each other. They work with each other.
They all carry their weight.
Balance.
Mm-hmm. They all carry their weight.
And the next in the next 4 episodes in this series, which, like we said, will be scattered, we'll dive into each one a bit more deeply.
Because you have to, right? This has been a very broad overview, but realistically, friends, romantic, parental, self, these can all be their own episodes.
They can be, and they should be, because we need to kind of dive into what they mean. Yeah. And how they interact, right? And just an example, if you have a couple of bad friendships, it makes it a little bit harder to trust a romantic partner, right? So that could be potentially a trauma point right there. So they all intermingle, they all interact, and our job as people is to figure that out. And that's what hopefully our next 4 episodes of this series will dive into.
Yeah, and I think another closing statement I would like to say is that love in general is something that everybody is deserving of. Take a moment to acknowledge that. And love is something that you deserve to give to yourself, and even that moment where things got a little emotional there for you, I think, if you're not getting it from anybody else, God damn it, give it to yourself. And you deserve it. Yeah. And I deserve it. And you, the viewer, deserves it. And love is the ultimate prize in life, I think.
Yeah. And when in doubt, buy her flowers.
Not a bad one.
No.
Not a bad one.
No.
When in doubt, buy her flowers. When in doubt, buy yourself flowers.
Thank you. I wanted you to say that one.
Buy yourself flowers. Give that love to yourself and seek it out with every atom of your existence, because love will steer you the right way. I wholeheartedly believe in that. Love dug me out of the hole that I was in, that it was going to be my grave if I kept it up.
Same.
It was going to be my grave if I kept it up, but love dug me out.
Guys, please like, share, subscribe. I know we didn't introduce ourselves at the beginning. Devin, Fareed, we hope to be your hosts for many, many future episodes. So please like, subscribe, share this with people who might find this valuable. Again, we're not educating, so to speak. We are more having a discussion as guys. Yeah. So please ring that notification bell if you want to hear more stuff like this. Till next time, thank you guys.
See you guys. Peace. Cool, man. Wow, sir. Dude, you about got me in I was about wrecked when you started crying. Oh, my God. That was good, though, man.